Hi, pen friends. It's Christy back again from Optimal Wellness, Yoga, and more. And I am here to play around with inks again, specifically with Birmingham Pen Company inks. We're going to test out the dilution solution with Prickly Pear and Arugula just to see what the impact is. Now, the dilution solution says that the recommended max concentration is approximately 30%. But I'm going to test it past that point and see what happens. So I already put the dilution solution into my palette here. And what I do is I put 1 drop there, 2 drops there, 3 drops, 4 drops, and 5 drops. And then I'll move in the opposite direction with the color that I'm working with. And I'm going to start off with Prickly Pear. And so I'll start with 1 drop here on the right, 2, 3, 4, didn't pull up quite enough ink. That was 3 drops, 4, 5, a couple drops of the straight up ink on the page. This is 100% Prickly Pear. And I should note that I am doing this in my B6 Common Planner from Sterling Ink because this is the Sanzin Tomoe River paper, which will be what I'm working with primarily next year. Plus, that's what I'm working with right now as well. So let me cap that before I do something bad. And we will move from the most pure prickly pear. So from the left here, where it's 1:5 ratio. So that'd be what, 20% dilution solution? And then this gets a little bit tricky, but I can usually get enough to record the amount. Five to 1. I'm really liking that, although I guess in the writing I'm not really noticing so much of a difference. Oh, no, it is certainly lighter. Definitely lighter. It's making the the kind of burgundy purple tones pop a bit more. Is kind of what I'm seeing. I don't know how it's showing up on screen. So then next, I should start it here. Next we have the 4-2. And I should note this paper clip here is holding blotter paper underneath, just in case there's bleed through. You can see I was doing a little swatching over here, and yeah, there's a bit of see-through, but this is the lighter weight, the 52 gram or 52 GSM Sanzen Tomoe River. So 4-2 is equivalent to 2-1. So this is that 33%. So kind of their max recommendation. And next will be 50-50. That right in the middle, just kind of as a visual reminder that we're at the 50% mark here. So 3 drops of dilution solution and 3 drops of prickly pear. I find at the full strength, when it's in a pen, that the prickly pear just kind of reads as a really dark purple brown. And sometimes that's darker than I want, but I kind of want this sort of tone. The other thing that's nice about testing it this way is that you can use a needle syringe, or even just as much as you can pick up with the pipette, and if you put them all into one sample vial, you have the 50% solution, because you doled out the exact same number of drops of each piece, whether that's mixing colors or mixing with dilution solution like we're doing here. Okay, now it's starting to feel kind of watery. It's a little harder to distribute, I think. And I don't know if it could be in my imagination a little bit, but anyway, I should show you. So my short that I did is I put everything that was left into this bottle to get, roughly the 50%, and it gives me probably about 0.6, 0.7 ml sample of the 50/50. So like, even though you're testing out, you're not losing anything, or you don't have to lose anything, especially if you're okay with that 50/50 mix of whatever you were mixing. So then this becomes the 1 to 2. And then our final, which is 5 dilution solution and 1 prickly pear. What's really interesting, and I feel this way looking at inks too, is like, even though the ink is light, like it doesn't look particularly lighter on this side versus the almost pure ink. And that just fascinates me, that what you see is not what you get. I didn't notice like any feathering or anything from that last one. And it didn't seem like it was harder to write with the Hokoro. And I've certainly run into that at times with some of the real light inks, that it feels super dry, almost like the ink has dried on the pen. So then it's 1 to 5. Prickly pear. And the other reason I was intrigued to see if you could get away with this sort of dilution is because of wanting to be able to lay down either with a brush or like a wide fude nib, to be able to lay down a really nice broad swath as kind of headings. Because, well, you can take the designer out of designing, but you can't really take the designing away from the designer. Or at least that's my experience. I still want to do that sort of thing. So here we are with the prickly pear dilution solution experiment. Once this is dried down, we'll take a look at this, and then we'll move on to the arugula experiment and see how that goes. Okay, I am back with the dried prickly pear dilution experiment, and I'm quite happy. I'm thinking that I may go for this 2 to 1, or perhaps I will just use the 50/50 that I ended up with in my test file. And I actually ended up with a mil there. So, that will fill a pen, plus a little for swatching or whatnot. So I may just go that route because it's nice and easy, but we'll see. Now let's do the arugula test. And I'm going to start off by putting a title on the page this time. Birmingham Pen Company. Arugula Dilutions. Okay, and I'm going to put the dilution solution in first. So now I'll move in the opposite direction. And I think I've mentioned before, these pipettes aren't, calibrated to create the exact same size drops every time or that, but it's a pretty close approximation and really about as close as I'm going to get mixing my own. I mean, I can get more precise with an ink syringe. And as usual, I've got two glasses of water here, one for the first dirty dip and one that is clean and clear. So now we'll move on to our first dilution. Trying to put down just a tiny bit less than I did on the prickly pear, because I think overall that was a little bit more ink than I needed for this size page. This is straight up arugula. This is the 5:1 arugula. I'm filming this and it's like after 8 p.m. and I mean, I was excited and really wanted to play with this, but it's not my most clear thinking sort of hour. Once we get past about 8 o'clock, I'm sort of well along on the downhill slide. I find with my various chronic conditions that I start kind of slipping downward about 3 p.m. So by 8, there's very little left in the gas tank and even in the brain cells. The fibro fog can kind of take over, so I'm not surprised to see myself making mistakes. I am just going to be excited that I know that I got the drops distributed appropriately. Oops. See, there I go. I went and dipped the Food Aid nib pen in the pure arugula. And let's prevent that from happening by actually closing the ink. And that way there won't be any unhappy accidents either. This would be the 2:1 arugula, so roughly their max recommendation for dilution. And then we have the 50-50, and again, put that drop down in the middle as kind of a visual reminder. This is chromo shading slightly. I mean, it's not super complex, but it does seem to be like drying with a stronger green than it goes down. Just kind of interesting. Of course, performance in a pen could be completely different. It could be that by diluting, we end up with really dry inks, like some of the companies struggle with their lighter color inks. As far as dip pen, it's working just fine, but it'll be interesting to put one of these stronger dilutions into a fountain pen. And it's going to be an unusual month in my planner because I think I'm going to be using mostly probably Jinhao pens, because I'm going to be doing another sort of challenge for my own education that is going to put some of my regular rotation pens out of commission for journaling and planning. But I expect I am going to learn much more about those pens, so I think it's worth sacrificing that a bit. So this will be the 1 to 2. Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that the really heavily diluted might not flow terribly well in pens because it's not spreading as easily. And if I were to use the light color for, swatches of color for headings, I could just as well use a paintbrush and could probably get away with water. Don't know for sure because I haven't done a chromatography strip on this ink. I have chromatography strips, but I need to refresh myself on how to go about using them. But I will come back once this is dried and we'll take a look at the final results. We are back to look at the dried arugula. What I am finding interesting is that I'm not seeing a whole lot of shift like between the regular and the 20% dilution. And like these three seem very, very similar as well. And then we have a difference here. That's interesting. I know Katie was saying that in her mixing, which she's been doing for 30 inks, 30 days, that she's not seeing much of a shift with the dilution. So It may depend somewhat on maybe how saturated the color is to start with. So yeah, unless I notice performance issues in the pen of it being too dry, I am probably going to not follow the label and do a greater proportion of dilution solution. Now, I did see more of a gradation here in the prickly pear. And it's maybe even more noticeable looking at the writing. So maybe the next time I do these, maybe instead I'll just do the circle and do my different boldness of lines and the various stroke tests with the Fude, so we can see it more in writing. I just thought that this way looks pretty. I mean, it is nice to see it like spread out. So maybe I'll just do like a drop of the color and spread it halfway, and then I'll have halfway to do a little more writing than I'm doing with this layout. I don't know. We'll see. I still definitely want to play with it in with Heron, because that too reads awful dark in most of my pens that I've put it in so far. And I'm intrigued to see what happens when we dilute a sheening ink. So there'll be more of these to come, but this is kind of my max for now, just these two colors. Plus, I am trying to work out my colors for October. So these two were ones that I was wondering if they'd work in my color story for October, but I was pretty sure their straight version was going to be too dark for my liking. So yeah, thank you so much for playing with inks and dilution solution with me today. If you have used the Birmingham Pen Co dilution solution, I'd love to hear what your experience has been. What colors have you tried it on? Have you exceeded that recommended 30% mix? I would love to hear. And if you have a video to it, feel free to drop that in the comments as well. Thanks so much for joining me. It has been a pleasure. Until I see you again, be safe and be well. Aho, and so it is. Bye.